Europe, which once spent an absolute fortune on the military, was wrecked by 2 world wars, mostly fought on European soil, and definitely not fought on mainland USA. At the end of World War II, the USA was facing off against the Soviet Union, which was threatening to bring the whole of Europe under communism, the ideological opposite of predatory capitalist America. Strictly in its own interests, to stop Western Europe becoming communist and becoming an opponent of the USA was willing to spend a fortune on defending Western Europe from the Soviet Union. It had military bases all over Western Europe and a huge army presence. It certainly wasn't doing any of this out of charity or altruism. It was doing this to stop the Soviet Union becoming the world's superpower. The standoff between the USA and the Soviet Union was known as the Cold War. It became even colder when China became communist, and then North Korea. The USA ended up at war with Communist Korea and then Communist China in the same war. It later became involved in a catastrophic war with the Communists in Vietnam, which it lost. America did all of this because it detested communism, not because it was defending any kind of universal morality and ethics, or whatever. No one could claim that the USA's actions in Vietnam were anything other than genocidal. At all times, the USA acted purely selfishly and with an absolute determination to advance its own aims. Western Europe was content to allow the USA to dominate the West. The USA had to pay for the privilege. Just to be 100% clear about this, the USA was able to lead the West because it paid to do so. If it hadn't paid, all of Europe would probably have fallen to communism, and that would have been catastrophic for the USA. Now, under Trump, an historical ignoramus, the USA is demanding that Europe pay for its own defense. Fair enough. Europe will now certainly do so. But as soon as it becomes highly militarized again, it certainly won't be taking any orders from the far-right USA. In fact, it won't even any longer regard the USA as a friend, partner and ally. Already, the USA is no longer functionally part of NATO. Trump has stated that he will not respect Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty, the entire essence of NATO. This article states that if any NATO country is attacked, all member nations will come to its aid. If the USA reneges on that, it's no longer part of NATO, by definition. The utterly bizarre foreign policy of Trump's USA is to make eyes at Russia, NATO's historic enemy, and to alienate Europe, and thus most of NATO. Trump, a moron who believes he's a genius, thinks that Europe should take care of itself and pay for its own defense, while still remaining firmly allied to the USA. But, as soon as Europe is highly militarized, why would it continue to be allied to the USA? Europe is much bigger than the USA, so once Europe is bristling with arms again, it will start acting strictly in its own interests and not those of the USA. In fact, it will almost certainly become an enemy of the USA, if Trump's regime continues in the same fashion as it has so far. Europe will ally with Canada, Mexico, and Central and South America, and completely isolate the USA. Trump wants to suppress the Chinese threat to America. He believes that China will be weaker if he can pull Russia away from it. But Russia and China will always remain close allies. Moreover, when Europe stops listening to America, as it will as soon as it rearms, it will be quite likely to look favorably on China. There is no reason why Europe should not become a friend, ally and partner of China rather than the USA, given how crazy and antagonistic and ideologically opposed to Europe Trump's USA is. America had to pay to be the world's superpower. If it can no longer pay, its time as world's superpower is over. It's as simple as that. It paid for influence, and if it can't pay now, then it has no influence. The Soviet Union collapsed because it could not support its absurd military overspend. Russia under Putin would collapse too if NATO kept facing it down, but the clown Trump has put paid to all of that. Putin can't believe his luck that he has a useful idiot in the White House, or an active Russian agent. The horrific truth is that the USA could never afford its massive military overspend either. It pretended it could by going into mind-boggling debt. Today, the American national debt is over $36 trillion. The USA is bankrupt in all but name. The American empire will collapse amazingly quickly. Trump is the perfect cretin to destroy it in no time at all. America has already lost all of its soft power. In just a few weeks, Trump's USA has alienated everyone other than Russia, Zion, Belarus, and North Korea, its partners in the United Nations. Way to go! America is now a universally detested country. That's where MAGA and America First gets you. America, these days, has to resort to hard power, to threatening to bomb people or allow them to be bombed. So much for the President of Peace looking for the Nobel Peace Prize. It's tragic that so few Americans have grasped what has been going on for the last 80 years. They haven't understood that America was paying to be the world's superpower and that it can no longer pay, hence can no longer be the world's superpower. The very worst mistake the USA could make is the one Trump has just made, to get Europe to remilitarize. Anyone who knows anything about European history knows that a fully armed Europe will in very short order become the world's superpower again, as it was in 1914 and 1939. If, in World War II, the USA had been fighting Japan and Europe, it would have been totally destroyed. Now, Trump's USA has united Europe in opposition to the USA. Trump, the America First guy, has just ended the American empire. So, it goes. This is exactly what happens when you put a clueless malignant narcissist in charge, cheered to the rafters by his Christian Zionist confederacy of dunces.